to be able to get a bye in that top 12, and they're going to wait for players in 5th to 12th to battle it out. They need one more win to get themselves into what we would call a more traditional top 8. We're going to have Zach Allen versus Gary Leek. We've seen Gary a few times currently in this in our feature match area, but this might be Zach's first time, and it looks like he's on Fair Breach. So Segura, you're going to be happy with this. Grixis Death Shadow, who do you have favored for game 1, or what are they going to be the game plans game 1 for both these decks?
This is going to be a fascinating match. A lot of back and forth and a lot of fun of interaction, because the Fair Breach is basically like the combo breach, like you saw, but there are no sagas and basically there is no artifact angle. You play Considers, Spell Pieces, Bolts, and Holy Heats, so it's probably better to compare it to Murktide without Murktide than Station Breach without Station. And so both decks basically are the same type of decks, right? So basically blue-red X interactive decks with some tempo threats. So I would expect this game to go for quite some time.
Okay, let's see how true that can be. Obviously, Desho, we're going to try and do as much damage to ourselves as we possibly can until our life total drops below 13, so we can start getting the big 1 drops into play. Grixis Death Shadow, we've seen it kind of fall out of favor a little bit, but then it started making more reoccursions because it was picking up the card Breach. That again on the other side, Zach is trying to play. This card is popping up in a few different places here. Both players managed to pilot it to a 9-3. We think an X-3 record will get you in that top 12. If it somehow goes to a draw, I think both these players will be having a bit of a sweat on, as we see a 4 Cs being cast after the Channeler, just revealing a Channeler and a Consider. What do you like taking here?
Well, I think you'll just focus on the threats. Never mind.
Or not. We're just going to leave that. Well, I suppose if we've got a removal spell in hand, we want to keep that creature, right?
Yeah, exactly. So because Gary might have just like double Unholy Heat or something, at which point he doesn't want to take the threat. So this makes sense if Gary just draws a removal spell. Exactly. That's how we drew up.
Why wouldn't you? It's such a big brain game of play, right? Do we have the Delirium? We've got sorcery, creature, land. This is enchantment. There's Breach that we spoke about. So Delirium is on. These are 3/3s, which are bigger than the 3/3s on the other side of the battlefield. 3 damage coming across, Zach dropping. So I think we're kind of in this weird, like, I suppose, top decky kind of war, right? But one of these, I suppose both decks also play Iteration, which would be huge if they manage to find it.
Yeah, and they're playing on low resources, and in such situations, card Underworld Breach is excellent when you've gone through a lot of cards and you just go, okay, Breach, play a bubble 3 times or something. But Alan has got Iconoclast, which is, barely relevant, and so takes Gigantha to hand.
So then passing the turn back, bunch of 3/3s on the battlefield. Get that off the battlefield. Trigger. I want to leave that card on top. Get in for 6 points damage. I think the last card in the hand is a 4 Cs. And we're casting it. What you got?
Honestly, when Lurus was still legal and Yorion was still legal, Thoughtseize was much better, because you always had a moment to cash in to take the opposing companion. Right now, that's not really the case, but it used to be. That's why in the Lurus times, if you could, you went Grixis, because you could always Inquisition away that Lurus, Thoughtseize away that Lurus.
So, it does look like, yep, Consider's going to get cast. Obviously, the Pseudo Pyromancer got taken with the Thoughtseize. Consider, is that in our hand, or are we thinking about it? It's a bit hard to tell what they're going to do. I think it's in their hand. But I wouldn't blame Zach if this was still on the stack of them, considering if they want to put it in the graveyard or try and dig for a better one. I'm going to go on. Let me say it's in the hand.
I'm not sure because the range of cards you want to keep is pretty slim. Because if there is a removal spell, you could keep it. Of course, you could, but it just prolongs the inevitable. So I think what you really want is something like Iteration. But if you see a Lightning Bolt, you probably can't really pass this up.
Yeah, I think where you cut the clock down from a 2-turn clock to a 4-turn clock.
Okay.
Right? Iteration. Yeah. Hell of a draw.
Land. Oh, come on.
Well, I've got this one. I've got this expert role. I reckon he's going to put a land in exile, play it for a turn, put a land in hand, put a land to the bottom. You're welcome, chat. Thank you very much. I'm here all week. as we're passing it back to Gary Lee,
I guess
what did he
I
manage
can
to draw for
retire
turn?
now.
Yeah,
You can take over.
Gary, I can do this role. It's fine. Gary, remember, did keep this card on top, so it is something that he wants. Could be something like a Drown the Lock, maybe, especially as he's passing the turn back. Good news for Zach, though, is he can play a 5/5 with Outreach, and it is going to absolutely lose to Gary's quick draw there. Gary's going to take game one down in super quick fashion for us all. Sideboarding. What does Breach like to bring in this sort of matchup?
So usually you want to cut all the cards that are conditional and just focus on like the stuff. Okay, yeah, exactly. So you want EE for the threats. You might want unlicensed hearses, but you haven't seen that much because you're not sure if the shadow deck plays Breach, which it could, or Croxa, which it could. And so Zach is just hedging and not playing it at all. Just sides in double. Okay, never mind. He literally changes his mind.
Well, he did see a Breach get milled over, right? A Breach to get milled over as the third card in that first game. So he knows that there's Breaches on the other side.
Oh, there is. Okay, if that's the case, that changes a lot. So, of course, Harris also works against Channeler. So that's another thing. And now here, he plays Blood Moon main deck. Oh my god, that's spicy. That is very spicy for Zach. So he could just try to cheese out the game if he wants to.
So tell chat what's the difference between Fair Breach, why we're calling it Fair Breach, opposed to the normal combo Breach, grinding station version.
Yeah, so Fair Breach basically means there is no combo in it. So the same way you would say Murktide is a fair deck, it's basically Murktide, but you cut Murktide and add Breach, right? But previously, a much more popular archetype was Combo Breach with Grinding Station. And so that was the first Breach deck that really, started to get noticed. So the Grinding Station Combo Breach, and then this one. And so in order to distinguish between them, this one is called Fair Breach rather than Murktide-less Murktide, which is arguably a bit more elegant.
Happy days. So while they're shuffling up, obviously, if you're still watching, congratulations. You're probably subscribed to this channel, so you will not be seeing any of these adverts that have to be played. That's out of our control. You know, it's how it is. But if you don't want to see ads anymore, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. Not only is that going to help this channel grow to bring you more paper magic for potentially around America, maybe Canada, maybe South America, maybe Europe. Who knows? How big can we get this channel? But the only way that's going to happen is by you hitting that follow button, hitting that subscribe button. So if you do have the means to be able to do it, please do that. Reminder, there is also a giveaway happening in the stream for a Guy's Cradle, ! Drip, to get all the details on that. You might as well sign up early for when that happens. You don't want to be the one scrabbling to sign up for it when Anu presses the who wins button. You want to be in there nice and early, so make sure you go sign up to that. Make sure you use Anu's code for that. If there was a code for it, I'm sure he'll put it in the chat very shortly for you all. As we have both players drawing on 7, Zach is going to keep. Gary's going to take a mulligan here. Didn't like what he saw. I didn't get a good look at Zach's hand. Did you have a good look at that then, Skiro, or was it too quick?
There was Iconoclast, there was Bloodman. So we could see some kind of weird game where it's like turn to Iconoclast. Gary says, well, I have to kill it. Kills it, and then gets completely smooshed with Blood Moon and just cheesed out of the game.
And we've seen that happen once already this today. Someone getting cheesed out by Blood Moon. I think that was Luna on Blue-White Control. Yep. Unfortunately for her, I think she was on the bad side of that. Oh, there's the land to be a second one. Okay, I think this might be a bit of a keepable hand.
Yes, certainly. Certainly, you've got turn 1 Thoughtseize. I think you bottom Drown or Iteration. Okay, because you go turn 1 Thoughtseize into turn 2 Ledger Bobble. So yeah.
Zach just leaving the turn of a tap Steam Vents. Gary doesn't care about his life total. He wants to take that damage. He's going to take a full 4 points of it.
Oh, that's a banger.
Now look at this hand. Talk to me about what is the take here on turn 2. Like, oh, geez, what do we take here?
Right. So because the things that are happening here. So if you take Iconoclast, there is no turn to play because you can't play Iteration on turn 2. You can't play Breach on turn 2. So you could take Iconoclast. If you don't, then Alan goes Iconoclast, Bobble, Trigger, Pop Bobble. Or you could take Blood Moon because you might lose to it. However, Zach will fetch and crack a Bobble in the meantime, which means there will be 3 cards in the graveyard, right? The fetch, the Bobble, and Iconoclast. So that means that Gary can just safely drown it. So he doesn't have to really play around Blood Moon. He will just play through it.
That's such a big brain play. That, you know, he's lining that up. He knows he's got the drown. He's obviously hoping that this fetch does get cracked. I think that's a lightning bolt drawn as well as a third land drop for Zach. Yeah, it's the island.
Yeah, I would assume that no, Zach just cracks this fetch, finds an island, plays the island he has, slams Blood Moon, but this Blood Moon shall get drowned.
And here's another fetch land here. I think another drown off the top. Remember, the winner of this match will lock themselves into the top 12 of this weekend's 20k modern action at SCG Charlotte, brought to you by Azid MTG. That's a lot of money. 20 grand being in the top 12. And top 12 we don't normally hear, right? Normally that is something quite weird that is very unique to this weekend, so to speak. That seeds 1 to 4 all get a bye. Just throw the Blood Moon. Just throw it. I love it. Just this resolve or not. But as I was saying,
well,
go on.
Yeah, to be fair, from Zach's perspective, it's kind of difficult to map out this sequence, right? That you've got specifically 3 cards in the graveyard, which walks into drown, especially if you haven't played against Grixis for quite some time. Because if Grixis Shadow was a bigger player, maybe it would be in your muscle memory. But like that, well, not so much. So it just gets counted. On the flip side, if there are drowns at play, you might just need to play through them all so that your iteration and your breach actually resolves.
Yeah, so the way of trying to get a Blood Moon win there did not work out for us. We were able to counter it. But going back to what I was saying about the winner of this will be able to make it into that top 12 cut. And the way it will work is 1 to 4 get a bye. 5 to 12 will all have one more round of modern to play. Winners of them, those 4 of them will be winners. 4 of them will advance to play the other top 4 seeds, and then we'll have the more traditional top 8 that we see. Lands there for turn. We're going to get an Unholy Heat off the top from the bauble as we pass the turn back. Now, Zach, what are we doing? The shields are relatively down right now.
Yeah, and so the strength of Ledger Shredder in those mirror matches, let's say blue fair iteration decks mirror matches, is that when the opponent iterates, it will always turn on your Ledger Shredder because, usually, right? Because iteration will probably find a land and a spell, or spell and a spell, which means that there will be a second spell played and hence connive your Ledger Shredder. That's also why in those mirrors, for example, breach decks sometimes add another Ledger Shredder in their deck construction against a Murktide heavy meta, or sometimes even have them in the sideboard to side them in because of that. So, and this probably will happen. No, Alan says, I'm not playing this bubble now to deny your connive.
So we're going to see, passing the turn back, what we're going to do is here. It looks like maybe a 40 or something at the top? No, it's a Dragon Rage Channeler. Going to come down.
And there are like 2 or 3 cards in hand. So it's either, it's drown, certain there are 3 cards. So there is a drown being held up right now.
I think we got drown. Was it Lightning Bolt as well? No, that one's in the graveyard now. Didn't get a good look. But luckily there are hand cams now because we were able to, put some more money into the stream, more work behind the scenes happened to get these beautiful hand cams for you all, for us, just to give you that top level entertainment and coverage that we all love to see. We're getting to the point where this might be some of the best coverage ever shown with all the cameras and hardware going, and it's just done to a one-man band. So again, hats off to Anu. Like, some people just turn up and watch the stream and then they go. I understand that. I speak to Anu a lot. I see all the work he puts into us. It's so crazy what he does and how he's able to do it. And more that me and you get to do the casting on these beautiful, great events as we see a Lightning Bolt take out that Dragon Rage Channeler. Obviously, Ledger is a bit too big for it. And it looks like we're flooding a little bit. That's 5 land, not exactly what Gary wants to be.
So
damage comes across.
So not this turn, but I think next turn we could see Jegantha being put into the hand when he plays his 5th land. But now Zach has got a ton of great cards, but they are all just air. Like they don't do anything, kinda. So he will lead on iteration and see if that resolves. He probably won't. Or literally will.
He's got 3 breaches plus land in hand.
Okay, and that's consider iteration. So he could go like consider iteration again. because he's at 16, so he could use his life as a resource to just kind of keep spinning his wheels. And at the end of that chain, he might end up like 1 or 2 cards up.
Let's see what he decides to pick. So Iteration's going to go to exile. It might have been Spell Pierce to hand then.
Yes, there was a spell piece, so he might just want to, because now if Gary actually does what I said he might, wait, what? Oh, that was connive. Okay, I was confused. If he plays his land 5 and takes Giganta, then that spell piece can counter drown.
So Unholy Heat's going to go to exile. We're going to pick the other Iteration to hand. So if it was that's targeting that, we're not going to save it.
Yeah, and Gary's not even playing the drown. So okay, now Zach is ahead because Gary was not doing much, and Zach had the time to spin his wheels at all. Like this hand was, again, as I said, pure air. If Gary was doing his thing, Zach was dead. But the Gary wasn't really doing his thing. And so he could go iteration into iteration. Now he can go like breach into iteration into bolt or something. So yeah, very good situation for Zach.
So we could see a breach get cast last time, maybe just to try and bait out a counter spell. We've got multiple of them in hand, and maybe try and set up for like a turn or 2 to go off. Because I say our life total isn't really under threat at the minute. We are at 13. There's only 1 power on the battlefield currently, and that looks like Spell Pierce, Iteration, and EE. How are we going to go about this, Zach? We are going to start off with a breach.
So interestingly, because you want to play spells of breach, including removal, because sometimes it's like a very, very fair breach where you just play breach into like double bolt, for example, which is like makes your best Fury impersonation. But when you play Unholy Heat of breach, you have to be very, very mindful of Delirium, because you have to exile 3 cards to escape it. So you do not really want to find yourself in a situation when you're playing Unholy Heat of breach, but you have exiled the necessary components to keep it delirious.
And we're going to see the Spell Pierce is going to catch this drown here. We're going to see a Death Shadow go to the graveyard. The counter should probably go on that, but then he just say, look, I'm going to bolt you a handful of times until the game is over. So it looks like we are going to go and get a game 3 between both these players here. Love to see it, especially when you're both battling out to see who will make the top 12. That is correct, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just tuning in, I did say top 12, not top 8. We have got a top 12 of this tournament where they will end up battling it out to see who will be able to make it into top 8, top 4, top 2, and eventually walk away with the title saying that they are the SCG Charlotte Champion 2023. Get that beautiful tweet, get all the clout that comes along with it. Is there anything that doesn't look like any players are going back to their sideboards here? Looks like they're quite happy. I think they're just shuffling up and passing it back. But is there any iteration to what you'd bring in on the draw or play? Maybe, as they say, we saw Blood Moons on Zach's side. Do you think maybe the worst now he's on the draw?
He might, but I'm not sure he wants some other tools changing the dynamic, because his sideboard isn't really well versed against Grixis Death Shadow, as it doesn't really, it shouldn't be. So because he's in hers and EE, and you still want them, so it doesn't really change the dynamic that much. And also, one point about being this being a fair breach, one of the reasons why people pivoted to fair is because they still had this kind of combo-esque finish, and while it wasn't a proper combo, it's a combo of breach triple bolt you, which kind of counts. So you can never really be safe against fair breach. They might draw off cards of 5 bubbles, or they might triple bolt you. I can say that my record for the Mishra's bubble triggers of breach was 9. I did it last week when I played MTGO League. I had literal 9 bubbles cast on the same turn.
That is strong, but but that's the reason why both of these decks are playing that super powerful card, right? We're going to need some land over here on Gary's side. Does he find? He finds 1. Is he going to keep a 1 lander? Does have Ragavan on the play if he wants it. Has Thoughtseize, Lightning Bolt, Death Shadow. Looks like he is keeping it. Didn't get a good look at Zach's hand, but it looks like we've got a keep from both players. Opening 7. Let's have a good game 3, gentlemen. Let's give everyone at home what they want to see as we're going to fetch up Blood Crypt. I imagine it's a Ragavan that we're going to see here. I think that will give us access to more mana next turn if we don't hit a land drop, maybe. But we'll see. Maybe we have to lead off with a Thoughtseize to try and protect the Ragavan. But nope. Starting with the
Now,
Ragavan.
interestingly, Zach doesn't have removal. Zach has his own Ragavan. So there are two possible scenarios. One, Gary has removal and just breaks through. Two, allows Zach to block. And now we've got another branch of decisions. Does Zach block or keep it for himself? So, like keep his own Ragavan alive. So a few things could be happening here.
Well, we know Gary's got a lightning bolt, so I imagine we're going to probably see something along the lines of lightning bolt, Thoughtseize or something, maybe. That'd be a good turn if we don't hit our next land drop off the top. Zach deciding what he wants to do with this bauble. Talk us through this. Why would he wait to the upkeep to bauble? And it does look like it was a land. Then potentially bauble in his turn so he gets another land.
If you bobble on your own turn, you have a delayed draw and you draw on your opponent's turn, but you're playing against a Thoughtseize deck. So if you did it this way, you would have drawn the cards from bobble and gave your opponent a wider choice of cards to discard. So what you want to do is draw that card when your turn begins, so that if they had Thoughtseized you, they would have looked at one fewer cards, if that makes sense.
Yep, makes complete sense to me. As we see a treasure token comes along and Holy Heat gets revealed, and then we're going to use the Thoughtseize again. We're leaving that card on top, so it's definitely something we're going to want. Bring us 3 card types in the graveyard.
A banger of an opener for Shadow.
And that's one of the advantages of this deck, right? Like everything basically costs 1 mana. It's so efficient at what it does. Every card's super powerful, and now they synergize really, really well. We're going to take
it's literally a legacy deck. It's literally a legacy deck. Now, to be fair, I haven't seen that many shadows. It has looked like a red, black, splash, blue tempo deck.
Yeah. Well, when it does what it needs to do, it does. We're going to see a consider cast here. Look at our top card. Do we want this, or are we going to put that in the graveyard? Zach thinking, no, he wants it in hand. Drew Island for the turn. It might have been an EE. Yes, it was an EE. He's going to get cast on 1. And that's going to be a good answer to clear up the threats on the other side of the battlefield. Also, making sure Gary can't really advance his board anymore. Like he's got another Ragavan. He's got another, I think it's a Death Shadow in hand, but no way of dropping his life total down. Finds his own Hearst off the top. Oh, that's a good one to hit. Being a 2-drop, it means the E will not be able to get rid of it. It also means you can start hacking away at Zach's graveyard, which is obviously we spoke about, is very good if they have the card Underworld Breach in their deck.
And it beautifully just slips under the Spell Snare, because Spell Snare doesn't have many targets, and the best one is Iteration. The second best one is Drowning the Lock. But there are, I'm not sure. Okay, there's also Ledger Shredder. So there are a couple, like dozen-ish targets, but now there aren't any. So Spell Snare might just be dead until the game's over.
We'll see how it gets on. Obviously, things under just not lining up great for Zach here, but he's going to have to try and find a way to get back out from under it. He can deal with the threats. That's probably step 1. But does he have to deal with them now so he can deploy his own Ragavan, or is he going to have to wait till next turn? Can we go land, blow the E, dash our own Ragavan? A lot of things going through Zach's head here of how he wants to try and sequence these next couple of turns. So yeah, he is going to blow it. Play his own Ragavan. Pass the turn back to Gary, who's going to exile. What are we going to exile? I like taking the... I would have took probably the artifacts out there, but here we go. Passes it back. We know he's got a Ragavan. Fetch. Probably get the blue source. We are missing blue mana besides the treasure token we have on the battlefield. If he starts showing his hand again, maybe we can have a little look. Being Death Shadow, he was most likely shockingly in. He wants to get his life total below that coveted 13 number, and then he can start deploying the 1-drop that just gets bigger and bigger from every hit or point of damage that he takes. 2 mana. Iteration.
Oh my god.
That's a good one.
And again, slips under the Spell Snare. I mean, this Spell Snare, oh my god.
Yeah, hopefully Zach will not watch this game back, because he's going to save every time he's just 1 turn off from casting it, as that looks like it's another shock land going to exile. I think that one of the options was a Death Shadow. We'll find out if that's one of the ones he picked to hand. Has 2 mana. Dash the Ragavan. Dash block, sure. We've got a treasure token left if we need it for anything. I think that is a Death Shadow in hand. Maybe life totals are not correct and we haven't dropped ourselves below 12 yet. But then I'm going to go out on a limb and say that maybe the life totals haven't been updated, because otherwise that Death Shadow would not be on the battlefield right now. I think it should be like maybe a 1-1. If it was 14 after the last shock, we drop ourselves to 12, so it would be a 1-1. But we'll get confirmation. That will sort itself out. It looks like it is 12 apiece as live titles get updated. Now, Zach, how are we going to get back into this? Our graveyard's getting taxed from our own Hearst. There's now a threat on the battlefield, which will just get bigger and bigger each turn. As long as we end up drawing, like, fetch lands are bad. Shock lands are good for us because we get to make our Death Shadow bigger. Shock lands are good for us because we get to make our Death Shadow bigger. Spells are good for us because then we get to draw spells. So everything's kind of good on the other side for Gary, but let's see how Zach needs a bit of help here. I think he's been signed Blood Moon, Spell Pierce, and a land. Not exactly what he wants here. He needs things to deal with the battlefield, not answer future threats.
Yeah, that is true. And so I think Zach Allen is in a bit of a squeeze. Blood Moon theoretically is great because everything that Gary has would be mountains, but it might just not be fast enough. So there is a monkey, and we've got finally Island up for the spell snare.
We did have to take 2 points of damage and shock ourselves for that. Bargain Exile. Now the Hearst is 4/4. Again, itself is going to start turning into a real threat. Land for turn. What is that last card in hand? Not having a good look at it.
Gary, don't play into the spell snare.
I kind of want him to after, the amount that spell snare has been held up. I think no blocks was said, so now we get to fetch. That fetch land is basically a pump spell, giving the Death Shadow +3/+3 if we choose to shock all the way down, which looks like we do. So the Death Shadow is now going to be a 4/4. That will drop Zach down to 6. Which, as of next turn, that Hearst, if it exiles 2 more cards, will be a 6/6 if it is crewed. And another Death Shadow is our last card.
And Jegantha to hand. Oh my god! I mean,
Gary to the right.
Gary putting on a clinic now. Spell snare, Blood Moon. I said at the beginning of the sideboarding portion that you basically want to get rid of the conditional stuff, and now we can see Zach sitting with both conditional stuff in hand, which is suboptimal certainly in this position.
Well, that's game, right? Because we can just cast the 5/5 next turn, crew the Hearst, 3 lethal attackers, 1 blocker. Zach, I believe, is at 6 life.
What feels even more awful is that even if, hypothetically, Zach played Bloodman, then Jegantha can still be played through that Bloodman. So that's just like awful.
We're going to see Gary in the top 12. 3 mana. Blood Moon.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep. Holding up Island for spell snare.
Gary has a quick look at his hand and realizes, yep, Giganta still can be cast from red mana. That's good. He's going to try and bluff something here by the looks of it. Tick this up. Exile 2 cards. Big draw for the turn. Lightning Bolt makes it even easier for him. That Lightning Bolt, of course, if he targets himself, is a pump-free spell to both of these. But instead, we're just going to deal with that. And he says, yep. GG's. Congratulations to Gary Leek, as he is going to make it to the top